right. Welcome back. This is Stealing Home. It's a series or cast on YouTube dedicated to SORARE MLB, discussing and detailing the information as I understand it and chatting about game theory. Today I've got some exciting updates regarding the league play, and I'm going to go over one of the tools you want to use to get the best value for the player cards that are going to achieve your goals. If you want to skip to the tool section, click the chapter timeline below. Let's start with the updates to league play. As you can see here, the first limited league play starts July 29th. This means that the limited cards you've purchased can now be used to earn rewards as well as XP. In addition to using the limited cards you've purchased, the initial limited league will allow you to use up to 3 of your common cards with the same experience bonus. Let's take a look at the team I've set up so far. One of the exciting things, and I'm so stoked about this, that's been clarified for us now, is the league will allow for relief pitchers to count toward the pitcher requirement for league rarity. What this means is that you can use a lower rarity starting pitcher. As you can see, I've used a common copy of Shane McClanahan and 2 additional lower rarity hitters to set up your team. This is excellent for cost efficiency, as the starting pitcher slot is often more costly per point than the relief pitcher and hitters. Now, let's talk about the primary tool we're going to use in the next episode to further refine our search for a quality player card and make efficient use of our Ethereum. The tool I'll be talking about today is Sorare Data. Here, you'll find information about all the player cards, both MLB and football, also known as soccer, but we're going to be using this to focus our research on the MLB player cards. First, you can easily sign in with your existing Sorare account, or you can create a separate account for Sorare Data. Let's get started. The portions of the Sorare Data page we're going to be looking at today are the market, live auctions and live offers, and in the scout section, the player rankings. Here in the live offers, the first thing we want to do is change the All Sports dropdown to Sorare Baseball. Now that we have the baseball player cards in view, we can start sorting and filtering. It starts off with every listed player card sorted by the most recently posted offer. You can see someone just listed Madison Bumgarner for a total of 0.06 Ethereum. If you want, you can purchase this card right now. I'll show you how you can quickly do that, and then we can come back and start refining our search for a player card. When you click the player card, it's going to open up a new window, as you see here. This window has a ton of information, and we're going to discuss it further later on, but for now, to quickly buy a player card, you can click on the View Card on Sorare. This opens up another new page, and you can click Buy to purchase the card we originally saw on Sorare Data. We're back to the offer page, and now we want to start refining our search. So let's come up with some search criteria. Because the first limited league starts in just a few days, we're going to narrow our search to a quality starting pitcher in the limited league. To do that, we'll click the Select One Scarcity or More dropdown and click on Limited, then click Filter. Now, let's change the All Playing status to Starting or Starter. This shows us all the players who are considered starters and will remove substitutes, reserves, and relief pitchers. Next, I use the term quality to describe a starting pitcher whose average score is 30 or higher in the last 15 games. We'll want to refine our search to only players who have 30 or higher score in the last 15 games by clicking the L5, L15, L40 dropdown, clicking on the switch for over the past 15 games, then dragging the middle slider to 30 to 100 and click Apply. If you know about baseball pitchers, I'm sure you're starting to recognize some of the names on the screen. If not, that's okay too, as we're most interested in refining the stats to find the value for our player cards. Now, we want to refine our search to only players under a certain price. For my team, I'd like to spend under 0.03 Ethereum, or about $30 US at the time of this video. To do that, we're going to click on the Price Filter dropdown, click on Floor Price, click the Filter by Current Price switch and enter 0.03 into the second box. Then click Apply. Great. That's narrowed our search down to 4 player cards. The reason we clicked on floor price is so that we don't see multiple copies of a card at a higher price. Currently, all limited players will have at least a 5% bonus and not likely any higher. If there were a larger list of players, we might want to have some assistance in organizing the list to see the best value. To do that, we can change the newly listed dropdown to best price average L15 ratio and then click Apply or Filter. This will sort the current player card list by comparing the player point average to their price. In this case, the list didn't change much, if at all, and we can already see the 4 player cards and make a quick comparison. Now that we've narrowed down our search, we can do a quick lookup using baseball reference to see which of our players we want to take and decide if the price is right. Let's start with John Gray. We're going to search for John Gray. And take a look at some of his pitching stats. Although a pitcher has a lot of stats, I mean, you can see as many stats as you want here. It's crazy. Although they have a lot of stats, the ones we're going to note are how many games he's played, his ERA, innings pitched, and hits allowed. You can highlight these at the top here. So ERA, games played, innings pitched, and hits allowed. We'll write these down and reference them for the next player card to compare. The reason we're noting these particular stats is that they correlate to the scoring system used by SORARE. In this case, John Gray played 17 games, has a 3.48 ERA, 95.2 innings pitched, and 78 hits allowed. And that's this season. Let's go back and get our next player card and name to compare. In this case, we're going to choose Tristan McKenzie. He's about 25% more, if you see here at the bottom. It's about 25% more expensive at 0.0252 Ethereum. We'll go back to Baseball Reference and look up Tristan. For the 2022 season, it's shown here, Tristan has played 18 games, has a 3.11 ERA, 107 innings pitched, and 76 hits allowed. Quickly comparing these stats, we can see that the average of 5.6 innings per game for John Gray versus 5.9 for Tristan, a slightly better ERA, slightly similar stats otherwise. I don't think 25% increase in price makes it for our team, and we'd want to choose John Gray player card at the lower price if these were our only 2 options. The other things we can filter, but let's move on and discuss the in-depth stats page for each player card. So we've chosen John Gray, and now we can see the information about his recent sales and some stats. I want to discuss some of the pricing that I expected to occur, and it seems to apply to all the players across the board. First, when SORARE MLB was launched, because there was no pricing history, a lot of the player cards were purchased based on their name or just their stats. Without better comparison to the other players and their prices, these were what right now seems to be a high price. For this reason, most players had a high value in the first couple of days, as we can see here in SORARE MLB, and dropped down to a lower price when fewer and fewer people were purchasing them. Now that these cards can be used in the upcoming game league, managers who didn't initially buy at the high price or wait a few days and get the low price are getting about an average of the 2 prices. Pricing in a brand new market will always be complicated. As time goes on, this will be refined by what each manager sees as the value of the rewards they can obtain through league play and possible future player card value. I'll be discussing my pricing strategies for league play in the next episode, but for now, let's take a look at the player stats page. We'll do that by clicking on the player name here. does open up another window. Here we can get into the further player stats, including the ones we saw on Baseball Reference and how the player card scored in previous games. To do that, click on the SO5 scores, and we'll scroll down just a little bit here. Now, we'll see a list of the next games the player's team plays or is scheduled for. As a side note, starting pitchers most often scheduled to play every 5 games or 5 days. This means on occasion your player may not play an entire game week as his schedule will skip that game week and go into the next. We'll take a quick look at the MLB Probable Pitchers list to see if John Gray, who plays for the Texas Rangers, is slated to pitch in our upcoming game week, which is July 29th through 31st. This page will also be linked in the description if you need access to it. So here we can see the list of all the teams, their games, who they're playing against, whether it's home or away, and the expected starting pitchers. This list will be in the link in the description. Let's find the Texas Rangers. So I'll highlight their games here. Because John Gray is scheduled to play on July 27th, it's not likely he'll play in the upcoming game week. If we're trying to purchase a player card for the upcoming game week, we'd have to pass on John Gray and move on to the next pitcher. We can go back and learn more about the player stats page now. As I said, we can see the players' team's upcoming games at the top. For pitchers, this is not necessarily when they'll play next. If we scroll down just a little bit here, we can see a history of how the player card would have been scored if they were on your team, and this doesn't include the player card bonus. Toward the top of the past games, we have selections to change the length of time or number of games. We can choose L15 to see how the player card scored in the last 15 games and when those game scores were achieved. The game information and opponents can be seen by scrolling further to the game section. So we can see here against the Miami Marlins, 29, against the Oakland Athletics, 43.5, and Minnesota Twins, 25.5. So it's good information to have. It's readily available, and this is for every player card. An important part of a player card is when they'll be available for auction. If we're interested in a particular player, regardless of their comparative value, we can check here to see their upcoming auctions and compare that to their price history and current offers to decide if we want to bid on their player card. Here we can see John Gray has auctions coming up in 32 hours, and 36 hours, and 27, all these different auctions here. If we want, we can click these auctions and click on View Card on SORARE just like we did previously to place a bid. Now that we know how to refine the current live offers and do some basic player research, let's see about trying to get the best value at the live auctions. Here, again, we'll want to change the All Sports drop-down to SORARE Baseball. Now we get a view of the live auctions, sorted by ending soonest. If a new bid is placed within the last minute of the auction, the timer for the auction is reset to 1 minute. This may have some auctions end later than others further down the list, but otherwise they're sorted by the auction end time. We can leave the auction sorted by end time and refine the search to specific card types and prices. Since we're looking for a quality starting pitcher in the limited league, let's add the same filters we did in the live offers section. We'll click again on the select one scarcity or more, select limited, click on the all playing status, and click starter. Select the L5, L15, L40 dropdown, turn on the over the past 15 game switch, and drag the slider to show 30 to 100. Then click apply. We could technically lower our criteria to 28 or to 100, but for consistency, we'll stick to the 30 to 100. Now we've got a list of all the limited players with a 30 or higher average over the last 15 games. We can see that the next auction ending is in about 58 minutes and for 0.0201 for Yu Darvish. On the left of the card auction price, we see the 3-day card average, which is 0.0266. This price includes the auctions and sales of the same player card of the same rarity. On the right of the card auction price, we see the floor price, which is currently 0.0292. This price is the current lowest sale from another manager that can be purchased right now. One important way to refine our view is by selecting the price filter and turning on the under floor price switch. Because we don't want to be paying more at auction than if we just went to purchase the card. In the future, we may be okay with a slightly higher card price if it comes with a higher point bonus, but right now these are all 5% for limited cards. In addition to turning on the floor price switch, we can turn on the filter by current price switch and set it to the same amount as we did in the live offers, which is 0.03 Ethereum. We've refined our search for auctions to a similar criteria as for the live offers. Ideally, we'd get a better value at auction than we would through live offers if we wanted to make sure we didn't pay more than the cost of a live offer copy of the John Gray player card. We could reduce the filter by current price down to the floor price for his player card, which, as we see here, is 0.02. Now we have a list of auctions that will ensure we're getting a player card at the same price as the John Gray player card we saw earlier and be of a similar quality. To be sure, you'll want to at least perform some basic player research before placing a bid on the player card. Now that we've covered refining the live auctions and offers, let's take a look at a third way of looking for a deal among the player cards that are available. This is the player rankings. Once again, we'll want to make sure we select baseball as the sport we're looking into. On this page, it's on the top right. To continue our search for a starting pitcher player card, click the drop-down that defaults to hitters and change it to starting pitcher. Then click filter. This list is showing all the starting pitchers who've played at least one game in the last 15 for their team, sorted by the player's last 15 performance score. As you can see, the player card we looked at earlier is shown here. John Gray is in 4th place for starting pitchers who've played at least one game in the last 15 for their team. Let's increase this number of games to 5 in the last 15 and see how this changes the list. As you can see, the list is empty. I wanted to show you this to reinforce that starting pitchers won't have more than a 27% participation rate, which is at most 4 of their team's last 15 games. Dropping this down to 3, we can see John Gray still makes the list and hopefully would be a great addition to our team. Another use for this list is sorting the values of the player card rarity that we're looking for. In the case of our previous search, we're looking for a limited rarity starting pitcher. Let's sort this list by clicking the limited value twice. This list is now sorted by lowest value to highest. This number is the 3-day average sales, if any. Unfortunately, this does not mean it is available on the live offers or that we can get it at auction for this price. But the number does give us some guidance on how much we should expect to pay for that level of performance. Remember, we wanted a pitcher with a last 15 score of at least 30 when we looked at the live offers and auctions. Let's scroll down this list and see where the first L15 of 30 is. Now, Merrill Kelly is 29.5. That player card wouldn't have shown up on our refined searches from earlier, but his average price for a limited card is currently 0.0073, which is much lower than the prices we'd seen for players who are above 30. This is a great example of how not being lenient can cause us to overpay for a perceived level of performance. Scrolling down a little bit further, we can see there are other cards that are above 30. The first one that is above 30 or that is 30 or above is John Gray. However, there were players who are very close to that 30 threshold, and that may save us some Ethereum while providing a similar level of performance. Finally, this list is excellent for showcasing the player stats that are highly important to our SORARE player scores. Specifically, the IP, or innings pitched, and ERAs, or earned run average, are listed for each player. Innings pitched can show us how many innings a player has pitched over the course of the last 15 or 40 games. One important note is that the partial number of innings pitched is either 0 for full innings, 0.1 for a full inning plus 1 out, or 0.2 for a full inning plus 2 outs. For example, Dylan Cease has pitched 18.2 innings in the last 15 games, or 18 innings and 2 outs. Anyway, there's a lot more to the player pricing and research, but this episode was specifically to show you some of the simple ways we can effectively refine our search for quality and value in a player card. In the next episode, I'll go over how I determine average player point value for each position, some of the cards I've already selected, and provide some examples of how you can set your goals for earning rewards in the upcoming game weeks. Thank you all for tuning in and checking out my series, Stealing Home.